And she knows just what it takes to make a pro blush.
Is Jojo Siwa's new 1950s aesthetic a result of the rise in conservatism?
Didn't nobody force you to do this? Literally, nobody forced you to wear this.
All the boys think she's a spy. She got fatty tape.
Jojo Siwa is pissing me off. The issue here is that you are feeding conservative views.
Sing a song regularly without dressing like an asshole or sounding like a dickhead, because you don't have to. You can dress normally.
Okay, so I was a bit hesitant to make this video because the last time I talked about Jojo on social media, I made a lot of lesbians mad, and deservedly so. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I was wrong, they were right. I'm sorry, lesbians. I'm sorry. If you are out of the loop, former child star turned, I don't really know how to classify Jojo Siwa at this point, internet nuisance, Jojo Siwa has gone through a bit of a shift. Basically, she was on a show called Celebrity Big Brother a few months back, and during her stay in the house, a few things happened. One, Jojo, who identified as a lesbian at the time, was subject to cruel and homophobic comments made by Mickey Rourke. I don't think I can play the clip for copyright reasons, but he heavily insinuated that Jojo wasn't actually a lesbian, and that she just needed the right man to come along and turn her, which is a problematic and really creepy stereotype. Mickey eventually got kicked out of the house for his weirdo, gross behavior, and Jojo grew closer to fellow cast member Chris Hughes. Chris and Jojo began to form an actual relationship, live, as this played out in front of all of the Big Brother viewers. Jojo got a lot of heat for this, mainly because she had a partner off of the show who she was actively cheating on live on Big Brother, and because of how she handled comments about her own sexuality. One of the quotes that she got a lot of heat for in particular was, "Being in this house has helped me realize that I'm not a lesbian, I'm queer. Fuck the L in LGBTQ, I'm going to the Q." Now here is where I fucked up. I think it's totally fine if people want to experiment with their sexuality, and I think Jojo has had the misfortune of having to grow up in front of an audience since she was like 6, and definitely has not had a normal or appropriate space to do any of that away from peering eyes. And I saw a lot of exaggerating going on at the time surrounding this, claiming that what Jojo was doing was setting back LGBTQ rights by decades, and that this was absolute calamity for the queer community online. I tweeted something snarky about this because I don't think Jojo really has the power to influence people one way or another because nobody likes her. So if she's going to continue to find her way in the world while the whole world watches, it's best to just leave her be, because policing people's sexuality is generally not something we should be doing, whether the person is famous or not. And her life is already so fucked by the Truman Show-esque reality that she's trapped in that making actual discourse out of it is kind of a waste of time. I was then quickly and swiftly humbled by my lesbian followers who informed me of a perspective that I hadn't quite considered all the way, that sure, Jojo is allowed to identify however she wants, but that doesn't mean that the way she goes about discussing it isn't harmful. At the time, people were letting me know that the fuck the L comment paired with the context of the Mickey Rourke stuff did in fact perpetuate the negative stereotypes that I mentioned earlier, which is a perspective that I should have been more aware of when discussing this for sure. And I understand this perspective much better now because Jojo has transitioned to her next phase of clout goblining, and it's very deliberate. She is now leaning into a very particular aesthetic for attention, and while the real person underneath all of the vintage pearls and the cringy selfies may truly be going through an identity crisis at the core of it all, amplified by the social media panopticon, that doesn't mean that she isn't self-aware. Self-aware, that is, of how this fake rebrand could possibly harm the community that she once identified with more closely, and arguably sought to make a profit from. And would you look at that, we are once again back in my lovely Manhattan apartment, in which I pay rent. You know, they say life is like a video game because nowadays it is so easy to earn points on everything from groceries to travel, but you should be able to earn points on the rent that you pay every month. And that is why I am so thrilled to talk to you about today's sponsor, Built Rewards. Built has completely changed the game by allowing renters to earn points on their rent when they pay it every month, and they can also earn points by spending around the neighborhood. And once you rack all of those points up, they can be transferred to airlines, hotels, and more. There is no cost to join, you simply start paying your rent through Built, and then you can start accruing those valuable points through your spending. And those points can get you access to over 500 airlines and over 700,000 hotels and properties around the world. Points can also be redeemed toward a future rent payment or exclusive experiences that only Built members can access. So if you're not earning points on your rent yet, my question is, what are you waiting for? Life is short. You can start earning points right now when you sign up using the link in my description or the QR code somewhere on the screen. And make sure you use my URL so Built knows that I sent you. Once again, click the link in the description down below to start earning points on your rent right now, and thank you so much to our friends at Built Rewards for sponsoring today's video.
All the boys think she's a spy. She's got Betty Davis eyes.
So this snippet of JoJo's cover of Betty Davis Eyes has gone viral for a few reasons. One, her look is very different. She's wearing these vintage pearls and looking very traditional, much more traditional than her previous attempts at rebrands, right? Two, she sounds like shit. The thing that I need people to understand about JoJo, and this is going to sound harsh, I guess, but she is not an artist. She makes content. She was a children's entertainer whose fans didn't really grow up with her in the way that she expected them to, and so now the product that she sells on her social media isn't her music or her music videos, it's her own packaged version of her controversial rebrands. She takes what's going on in her real life and then finds the one kernel of the thing that will get people talking about her in a controversial way, and then that's what she does. And then she doubles down on it. Here's what I mean. I've seen plenty of tweets that look at this Tradwife aesthetic and they pair that with the context of her coupling up with a man, and they're saying it's a sign that conservatism is truly on the rise and that everybody is getting back in the closet. But my thing is like, I don't think JoJo is doing any of this seriously. I don't think she's seriously trying to become a domesticated, vintage-inspired Tradwife. I think she's a person who formats her entire personality and aesthetic around getting the people who already don't like her to talk about her more. She doesn't do any of this for her fans. She doesn't have any. She's not influencing people to follow her image or trying to win anyone over. She's being a messy 20-something-year-old behind the scenes and then using that real-life context to supplement this controversial quote-unquote rebrand so that people are more likely to actually take it at face value. It's like a very fucked up performance art. I know Jojo Siwa isn't really trying to be a Tradwife. If you look at her social media posts, they're kind of the same, you know, when JoJo's being JoJo and not this like vintage 1950s character, as they were prior to this whole Chris Hughes situation. She's still cursing, she has a ton of tattoos. It's not like she's getting up on her TikTok and preaching the word of the Lord every day. She's still letting Chris Hughes post invasive selfies online. But the thing that I've learned since this all started is that it doesn't matter whether or not JoJo is being genuine. Bad actors will take advantage of this story when it benefits them. Take this tweet, for example. This is a post from conservative influencer Benny Johnson that reads, "Pop star Jojo Siwa's rebrand from a radical lesbian activist to a straight trad girlfriend needs to be studied. We all know why this really happened. Woke is dead. Nature is healing." So obviously a lot of what Benny Johnson is saying in this post is not grounded in reality. He likely doesn't even really know who Jojo Siwa is. But he's still perpetuating a lot of the negative stereotypes associated with this story, that JoJo's sexuality was just her trying to fit in, that queerness is just an aesthetic trend that people are growing out of. And is it entirely fair to pin on JoJo what conservatives are going to do with her image? Not necessarily, because they always lie no matter what. But would Benny Johnson be necessarily making this post if there wasn't such a stark contrast that he could point to with what she used to dress like and what she's dressing like now in this new phase? No, and so that's why I 100% think that this is bait and, you know, just bad work on JoJo's part, but I also can't be surprised when she's not responsible with her platform, because when has she ever been? One of the things that I get a lot of shit for on this channel is that I perhaps come off too empathetic to celebrities who have damaged a lot of their own goodwill and they don't deserve it. But one thing that I've learned from, I don't know, researching this story is that multiple things can be true at once. JoJo is allowed to be messy and experiment with her sexuality, and that's nobody's business. She can lean into the mystique around her own existence by making vapid Tradwife covers where she sounds like a chain smoker. She is knowingly manufacturing her own cultural talking points. But even if she's self-aware, and even if you're somewhat empathetic to the fact that she's never going to be a well-adjusted adult because of her upbringing, here's the thing. Bad faith conservatives don't care about any of that. They don't need the context. They can take 2 before and after pictures and go look at this gay weirdo who became a normal straight TM, even though on multiple levels that is not anywhere close to what's happening here. Ultimately, I guess I wish that people would just stop pretending that Jojo is doing this in a serious way just because it's interesting and it's shocking and it's fun to talk about. Like, she's still a grifter even though her grift might not be as obvious or typical to spot. This is absolutely unserious, and she knows that, we know that, but people are still going to be harmed by the stereotypes that she is actively perpetuating. Not with her relationship and who she's sleeping with, but, you know, all of the content that she's putting out there. Because the content will then be used by bad actors who don't care about context. Someone in my live stream the other day compared her to like a modern day version of old school Trisha Paytas when Trisha was like doing anything and everything she could to rage bait people. But people are more willing to buy into Trisha's whole thing because she was at least kind of funny and charismatic. Whereas Jojo has all of the charisma of like a Barbie doll with cut up hair. Good morning. It's the next morning. I just woke up and there is a brief addendum that I forgot to record. I've seen a lot of discourse floating around that people are, you know, taking this too far in the sense that they are associating Jojo dressing more femininely in this content with invalidating her queerness. And like, Jojo dressing more femininely is not to say that she is no longer queer. To my knowledge, she has never come out and been like, I'm straight now because I'm dating a man. Like, she still identifies as a queer person. It's more like the 1950s aesthetic, I guess, that's making people do a lot of the heavy lifting here, which I'm going to get into in the next section where we talk about separating Jojo's content from what she's going through personally in her life. Oh my god, I feel like this is what like my set looks like in the context of my whole apartment, by the way. It's my kitchen over there. When I'm not filming, this is where Brian keeps his lightsaber that he got from Disney World a couple weeks ago. He's not home right now, so I'm fucking with it. I can't figure out how to turn it on though. Yo, honestly, this thing's kind of sick. I'm not gonna lie. So I think my point here is that in order to critique Jojo and her behavior effectively, and admittedly this is something that I failed to do in the past, right, because she's so good at weaving her personal life with like this fake kind of persona that she's created, is that we have to separate the content that she's making from what she's going through personally, because both of those things deserve a different sort of attitude and critical analysis from those watching it unfold from the outside. Now, of course, it goes without saying that Jojo Siwa and Chris Hughes are two consenting adults. Chris Hughes is 32 and Jojo is 22. I don't know much about Chris's whole background, but I do know about Jojo's, and Jojo has had every adult around her fail her every single step of the way. Does that absolve her of any wrongdoing? No. But that doesn't mean that I enjoy watching her make mistakes and try to figure her life out in a very public way, with the one man who was a little bit nice to her after Mickey Rourke essentially threatened her with violence for being gay on live TV. I don't want to be making these connections or these inferences into her personal life or her psyche. However, she insists on living, again, this Truman Show-esque life in front of everybody to make their own judgments, which is most certainly still to this day being enabled by her money-hungry dumb bird of a mom. So I can't help but put all of the actual pieces together outside of the clown show that she's perpetuating on her TikTok account and see a really sad, fucked up story of a kid who never got to figure out who she is, having to continuously debase herself for likes and validation because it's all she has ever known how to do. And now because of that, other people are getting hurt by her emotional immaturity and recklessness, and we just all have to sit back and watch the car crash and participate in the meme cycle as we do. Sorry if that's a bummer, but I think at this point we could make the argument for Abby Lee Miller to be tried at The Hague. I'm kidding. Kind of. Thank you so much for watching, you guys. I have a tiny request before you leave today. I'm going to be posting my July episode of my popular monthly series, How the Internet Fell Out of Love, within these next 2 weeks. I am strongly leaning toward Lana Del Rey because it has been highly requested and it won a couple of the polls that I put up on my community page, but I'm not 100% sold on it, so if you have any other suggestions for How the Internet Fell Out of Love, whether it's for this month or some other month coming up, let me know in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye! Thank you so much again to Built Rewards for sponsoring today's video. Be sure to check them out in the description down below.